This is an ADC warning. The crimes you're about to see are true. Only the names were changed to protect the ignorant. Tonight, on America's Dumbest Criminals, you'll see our first twin dumb criminals. Actual surveillance cam footage you won't believe, and Rin Tin Tin meets a dummy. These are just a few of America's Dumbest Criminals. Hi, and welcome. I'm Daniel Butler. We've got more criminals on this show than you can shake a nightstick at. All dumb, all the time, all for you. Here come America's Dumbest Criminals. And now, Ed Leach of Birmingham tells us how he conned twin con men.
We were looking for another wanted felon, had a warrant on him. There were two brothers who always used each other's names. And I knew the difference between them.
So how you doing, Jim? Everything been going okay?
Okay, yeah.
You haven't seen your brother around anywhere, have you?
No, I haven't seen him.
Yeah,
and I stopped one of them. And I was just talking to him, and he had given me his righteous name because he knew that I knew his true name. Well, his brother was who I was looking for. And I saw him walking by one of the businesses on our beat. And I called out to him using his brother's name that was standing right in front of me. And he answered me and came to me. And I stood there, and he walked up to me, and I said, "Hi, how you doing? How things going?" He said, "Oh, I'm fine, Officer Leach." I said, "Well, I got some bad news."
You are Joe, and you.
I said, "You're under arrest." "What, not me?" And I said, "No, yes, you." And he just shook his head. I said, "You just fell for your own game, that's all."
They look alike, they think alike. In Virginia, it used to be illegal to keep a bathtub inside your home. Here, the first families of Virginia gathered to take care of their personal hygiene. Next, bewildered car thieves turned robbers have to stay one step ahead of the law, on foot. Planning to rob the bank just 2 blocks away, these two wheelless wonders figured they'd probably need a getaway car. Not seeing anything that really caught their eye, they decided a pickup truck would do just as well. After hot wiring the truck, they drove down the street to the bank. Pulling on ski masks, they went inside to rob the bank. And they left their getaway truck running. Meanwhile, the owner of the pickup truck returned to find his pickup truck gone. The man stormed off, looking for his truck or a payphone so he could call the police when he walked by the bank. The same bank being robbed by the same two guys who stole his truck. He didn't know that, but he did know his truck, so he was gone. As he turned the corner, the untimely two exited the bank and ran to where they parked the stolen truck to find it stolen. With no means of escape and being the only two guys on the street with ski masks and bank bags, it was only moments before they were arrested and given a ride to jail. Repossession is 10/10 of the law. Now, actual surveillance cam footage of a guy we call, "Hi, Mom, I'm on TV." This man just did a crack cocaine deal on video with an undercover officer when he discovers the camera. So what does he do? He walks right up to the camera, giving the police a great ID in court. Officer Jeb Johnston tells us of a sneaky leather thief who could get away with stealing in his heart, but it's his soul that catches him.
The stickers they're little inventory control stickers where they put on any jackets or any high-dollar item. Like if you walked out of the store, it would set off an alarm, prevent shoplifting, and catch you without paying. This guy comes into the store just to steal leather jackets, apparently. So he comes in there and he's back in the dressing room, flicking the little stickers off on the ground. checking the sleeves, checking the liners, make sure he's got them all. So he thought he had them all. So then he starts heading for the door, and all of a sudden the alarm goes off.
What you got here? What you got here? What's it going off for? Whoa!
Man,
Hey, this is my coat.
So security comes around, and they grab a hold of him, and they couldn't figure out why the alarm sounded. So then they got back talking to him and looked on the bottom of his shoe, and when he was flicking them off, he thought it was Sly. He had stepped on one, and that's how he got caught.
Now he's stuck in the Witness Protection Program. Coming up, a dumb criminal with a bag full of trouble. Welcome back. Now Don Parker tells us about some dumb dope dealers who answered an ad in the Lost and dumbfounded.
Narcotics cases frequently have interesting twists. I think that this one probably reflected, to me anyway, the quintessentially dumb criminal in action. Guy lived in the subdivisions, walking down the street, walking his dog, finds a couple of purses, if you can believe this, in the weeds next to the side of the road. He opens up these purses, finds that they have some brick-shaped objects in there, about the same size and shape as a brick, wrapped up in duct tape. They don't look like anything he expected to find in a purse, so he calls the sheriff's department. We send a patrol deputy out there. He opens up the bricks full of white powder. He does a quick field test, almost pure cocaine. Calls the narcotics section. They send some people out there. They confiscate the purses, and they decide they're going to stake out the place. They can't imagine why somebody has left almost $200,000 worth of cocaine on the side of the road in some purses, but they're willing to try, stake out the place, all right, in this little wooded area. Time goes by, it's 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, no activity whatsoever. They're really getting bored, as you might expect. They're tired, they're sleepy, they've worked all day long. Finally, one of them comes up with what he thinks is a brainstorm. He finds an old scrap of paper on the floor of the cruiser car, writes on the back of the paper, "We have found your purses, large reward expected," then puts it on a stick and places it right where the purse was. He leaves a phone number on it. It's one of those confidential phone numbers that bypasses the switchboard and rings in the narcotics section. 2 narcs go home. They're tired, they get up the next day, come to work. Well, it seemed like a good idea at the time, but as you can well imagine, by the time they told the lieutenant and some of their co-workers, this was a pretty funny story. What do you think, they're going to call us to buy their dope back? Everybody's just kidding them all day long. They're having to take grief, and the kidding continued until about 3 o'clock in the afternoon when we got a phone call. Guy calls up and says, "You say you got my purses." Calling this confidential number, remember. One of the female narcs answers the phone and said, "Yeah, we got them. We want $10,000 in cash or you don't get the purses back." Guy says, "I'm not paying that." She says, "Fine." Hangs up. Phone rings again. He says, okay, 10,000. They make an arrangement to go out to a local shopping center, describe a particular phone booth. They show up. We've got the place surrounded with off-duty deputies and narcs and everybody in plain clothes. Car full of people show up. 3 guys in the car. One of them gets out. He's got a big old shopping bag, walks across the street. We've got a male and a female agent standing by this particular phone booth. He looks at them. They look at him. He says, "You got my purses?" And the lady's got the purses under the arm. Said, "Sure." Said, "You got our money?" He says, "Right."
On the ground. On the ground. Now. On the ground. Drop the weapon. Get out of the car. Come on. Okay. Face down on the ground right now. Come on.
We confiscated 1 car, made 3 arrests, got $10,000 in cash. We got a couple of kilos of cocaine, and of course, we got 2 Gucci purses, very nice purses. P.T. Barnum said there was 1 born every minute. Those guys definitely qualified.
You can catch some of the criminals all the time, and all of the criminals some of the time, but you can't catch all the criminals all the time, except the dumb ones. In Pulaski, Illinois, it used to be against the law to throw snowballs at trees. Shortly after the law was passed, the Pulaskians turned on one another. Now, actual footage we call 4th time's the charm. This is actual footage of the police busting the same house for the 4th time in 8 months. Each time they found cocaine and weapons. You'd think they would at least move. Next up, a dumb criminal returns to the scene of the crime because he forgot he committed the crime.
I got dispatched to a suspicious person call in a rural area about a guy knocking on doors. So I arrived in the area, and immediately I located a guy in the front yard holding a beer in his hand. So I approached him and I asked him, what he was doing, and he explained to me that he was lost. And I realized that he was intoxicated. And he said, "Sir, I've been with my friends all night, but they put me out of the vehicle and left me." I said, "Well, okay. He said, will you please take me to the nearest payphone and I'll call a taxi and be out of here? I said, certainly. So I put him in the car and we drove down the road and we approached the store and I let him out of the car to use the phone. He walked towards the phone and all of a sudden the store clerk comes running out of the store, hollering at me and the suspect saying, hey, that guy right there, he just stole a 12-pack of beer not 2 hours ago from here. And I said, okay. And you could see it all over the suspect. He was like, he says, I'm caught. So placed him under arrest, and he told me on the way to the jail, he says, sir, I can't believe it. He says, I cannot believe that I got the sheriff's department to take me to a place that I had stole something 2 hours later. He says, sir, I'm guilty, I know, guilty.
Now he really needs to make that phone call. Inside the courtroom for trial and error. From the witness stand, testimony about a dumb criminal who was an eyewitness to his own crime.
Mr. Lance, did you get a good look at the guy who robbed your drugstore?
Well, we saw each other when he first walked in. Then he pulled a trash bag over his head, and then nobody could see anything.
What do you mean?
Look, he forgot to cut eye holes in the bag.
Coming up later, dumb criminals who make a change for the worst on America's dumbest criminals. Larry McDonald, with the help of a canine unit, sees a dumb criminal lose his grip and gain an octave.
I was at a beauty shop, which was located in a old building. And there were several cars got there, canine unit got there and everything. Well, we could hear the burglar moving around inside. And after a few minutes, we determined that he'd got up into the ceiling. And so the more we stayed there, the more we heard him moving around, and we figured out that he was trying to get from that building over into another building through the firewall. And so we hollered and told him that we were fixing to send a canine in. And so he didn't come out, so we took the dog inside. The dog had a either good or bad reputation according to who you are and which way you're looking in from. And so we came in there and the burglar apparently heard the dog. So he got to try to come down and he slipped and fell from someplace higher than the original ceiling, and he split the beam with his legs, and which caused him to hurt tremendously because he apparently burst or came close to bursting his privates. And he, both of his feet came down through the new ceiling, and so he was straddled the beam with both feet sticking out through the new ceiling, and he couldn't move, didn't want to move, and we had to get the fire department and the paramedics to come and get him off the ceiling, or off the beam out of the ceiling, because he was in tremendous pain and he didn't want us to fool with him. So.
Painfully instant justice. In Georgia, it used to be against the law for chickens to cross the street. Here, a large group of geese mocked the chickens by openly crossing I-20. Now, a story about vanity and how a small-time house burglar goes from rags to prison. To the police, Cecil Warren had two reputations. One for being a thief, the other for having the shiniest shoes in Roanoke, Virginia. It wasn't uncommon for our vain criminal to put a spit shine on them several times a day. He even carried around his own monogrammed shoe shine rag. It was his trademark. One day, he decided to break into a house by climbing into a window. Uh-oh. Watch those shoes, Cecil. Once inside, he took several $1,000s worth of jewelry. But it wasn't until Cecil was about ready to leave that he noticed scratches on his shoes that were caused when he scrambled through the window. Cecil couldn't stand it, so he immediately got out his monogrammed shoe shine rag and began to buff his shoes. Within moments, he had a great high-gloss sheen again. And Cecil was back out on the streets. But not for long. He was feeling so good about the robbery and his shoes that he left his trademark monogrammed rag lying on the floor of the house.
Hey, Jeff, look at that.
For our dumb criminal, it was a fatal mistake. For the police, it was as good as a fingerprint. A shining example of stupidity. ADC quiz number 329. The Chinese Triad Societies hold a world's record. What record do they hold? Is it for A, the largest manufacturer of adjustable beltless slacks, B, the largest criminal organization, or C, the most elaborate secret handshake? The correct answer is B, largest criminal organization. Actually, they're 12th in most elaborate handshakes, behind the Shriners. We've all heard that great minds think alike. Well, this next story is proof that weak minds do too.
We had some burglars come over into our city from a neighboring jurisdiction, and to get over into our city, they swam across a canal. I don't know why. They could have ran across the bridge, but when they got over here, obviously they were soaking wet. We're looking around the neighborhood for these bad guys, and I kind of had a little gut feeling they might be in this one particular house. And so sure enough, the people whose house I thought these guys might have been in came home. Someone had been in their house. Well, it wasn't real hard to find out who. It was the bad guys we had been looking for, because when they changed out of their wet clothes into the clothes they found into the home, they left their Florida identification cards and driver's license inside the home they had broken into. So it wasn't real tough to find them.
See, some of that water had apparently seeped into the brain. And now, the actual responses of men caught in a prostitution sting.
Please don't arrest me. I was going to lose my job.
I just asked for what $40 we get.
Okay.
I probably broke the canyon.
If y'all be lenient on me, I promise I won't never do it again. I swear I won't.
Welcome back. Next, a drug dealer who is overdrawn at the memory bank.
We had bought some drugs from an individual, arrested him, and about a month later we got some information he was still selling some drugs. So we got in touch with him and met him in a shopping center parking lot, intending to buy a couple pounds of marijuana from him.
Looking to buy?
Yeah.
Yeah, you got it on you?
Sure.
Let's check it out.
And during the preliminary negotiations, he kept telling myself and my partner that we sure looked like the policeman that had busted him a month ago.
Hey, aren't you two guys the cops that busted me last month?
Oh, man.
No, I get that all the time. I got one of them cop faces or something.
Just can't be too careful, you know.
I know.
And we, told him that we'd heard that from a lot of people, that we looked like a couple of policemen. So we continued to negotiate, and a short time later, he did sell us the 2 pounds of marijuana. When we arrested him, the first words out of his mouth was, "I knew you were cops."
You guys were cops.
He said,
I just had to try.
A classic case of double indemnity. And with that, we come to the end of another show. Our continued thanks to police officers across the nation for their stories. I'm Daniel Butler saying, don't be dumb, don't break the law. So long.